Hey, Josh.
Hey, Kurt.
How's it going?
It's great. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. How are you?
We've made it to the end of a 6-part series for Founders Live.
Yes, we have.
A big moment.
I know.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun.
For us, yeah.
It's been
Hopefully
great.
for everyone that's been listening too.
Yes. Well, I would hope so. So today we're going to be talking about if they build it, or if you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come with opinions.
With opinions, yeah. And we want those opinions, right?
We do. Everyone.
We do. Why do we want those opinions, Josh?
We want to make sure, again, going back to some of the other videos we've done, do one thing really well. So those first opinions you'll be getting will be telling you whether or not you did that one thing really well.
Yeah.
So that those first opinions are going to be important to validate that what you did is what is going to gain traction. The other reason we want those opinions is we want to start gathering information on what else we need to build.
Why do we want that information, Josh?
Because we don't want to make those decisions on our own.
No, we don't. That would be bad.
We didn't build this for ourselves,
Nope.
right?
Nope.
You didn't build a product for yourself. I didn't build a product for myself.
Nope.
We don't have any customers here that build products for themselves. Many times it solves a challenge they have, obviously, but it's not going to gain traction and it's not going to be around for years to come if it isn't something that people actually enjoy and keep using.
Yeah, it's true. And the other thing that I think is important is about the measuring as you're going through. So sure, there is the interviews where you're getting opinions and all those different things, but there's the metrics that you can be adding to your tools to be getting feedback on how it's going. I think one of the things that I think people mistake is there's analytics. And then there's metrics. So much different. And here's the main difference is that analytics will give you a lot of the vanity stuff that you might need or you think you might need for maybe a potential investor or for marketing. Like we've got over X amount of users or we've so many subscribers. Or from a marketing perspective, like, well, we've got this many conversions and people have started, subscribers or whatever the case may be. But there's a big difference when you have metrics, when you have tools attached inside of your product to be tracking how people are going through and using the product and whether or not they're finding success, what pages they're getting stuck on. You can put some incredible tools inside of your product to start making better decisions on your next iteration.
And these next iterations, this might not only be development. This might be going back to the drawing board on some of the designs, on some of the user experience, and really tweaking things, right? Because like you said, they might be getting stuck at certain points. Well, are they getting stuck for a technology reason or are they getting stuck because they just don't understand what they're supposed to do next?
Because the workflow's messed up or something, right?
So you might have to re-engage with the design team. You might have to re-engage with the development team. It's really going to matter, what is this? What are the metrics showing you? Where's the fall off point here, right? And you're right, the metrics and the analytics, totally different thing.
Well, and it's really where you can help find the truth because honestly, you invite somebody in, you sit them down, you walk them through the product, you're going to get kind of sometimes a mixed bag of feedback, right? Some people are not going to want to say too much because, you're there and it's uncomfortable to tell you your baby's ugly, right?
We're in the worst place for this. We're based in Minnesota where everybody's Minnesota passive aggressive.
Exactly. Nobody wants to give you that honest feedback.
Right.
But if you put in those metrics and you're looking at that regularly, you're being able to see how, oh, wow, people are really sticking around on this page for a really long time. Is that for a good thing? Or is that because they're lost and they're trying to find their way out of there? Or, for example, maybe they are loading up the application once and then you're seeing how they're not actually using the tool. You can start to get metrics around those things. You can even build in notifications around those metrics that show you that, 30% of your users are not getting past the first, creating their first whatever they're creating inside of your application, right?
No, there could be all kinds of processes that might just be a little out of whack for your users, right? So the first thing you're going to want to be monitoring is how people are using it, how they're getting through, what their experience is like on your service. And they will come with opinions about how you built it and how you designed it. So that's the first thing you would listen to, obviously. Then once you get past their opinions of how you designed it and how you built it, then they're going to start coming with opinions once they've embraced it of how they would use it more. Right? And those are the valuable pieces to consider when you're thinking about future build outs of this product, because We've talked about this in previous videos. You're going to have your ideas in version 1. You're going to have ideas in your MVP stage where you're going to say, I want it to do 50 things.
Yeah.
You're going to be challenged to whittle it down to one thing. You're going to begrudgingly launch on one thing, right? And you're going to have your roadmap of future iterations that you want to get to. You're going to find out really fast which ones of those ideas get pushed back even further as customers are asking for new features that maybe you didn't even factor for that take precedence over the ones that you wanted to roll out. And I would just say my piece of recommendation there would be always give the customers feedback precedence over what you thought you wanted to do.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about a few of the different channels for that, because, the larger the company, the more channels you need to create. But I think the most important thing is to figure out in that early stages, where are your customers? Where are they at?
Yeah.
Are they Twitter users? Are they email people? Are they corporate people?
Yep.
So figuring out where they're at and then starting to move that channel in front of them to say, this is where you can really give us some feedback. You can talk with us about things. Of course, for me, it's the more channels you can open up, the better, right? But sometimes that can become a lot of noise. But if you're really in the beginning, not just asking people how they would use it, but asking them also on how they would give you feedback on it, I think that's really important. Would they want to tweet at you? Would they want to send an email? Would they want a form to fill out? Some systems, they have their own ticketing systems that you can just put tickets in that they'll eat, and you could watch them move through the system. And there's lots of great tools out there for a pretty reasonable cost that would allow you to add that to your product and make public kind of how you're moving along and changing how the application works.
Yeah, and I would say many of those tools become obviously more important the larger you scale. So I think it might be important to quickly talk about what is your first version and who are you actually rolling that out to?
Yes.
Because most products don't roll out to a worldwide audience of millions on day one, right? So first version is really that. It's a first version. This is a test. We want to get this in front of a manageable amount of customers that to your point, that you have had a discussion with and said, when you identify bugs, when you identify issues, when you identify additional features you would like, here's how I would, can you report them back to me this way? You're setting up more of a manual process, much like in your MVP stage when you're testing your idea. This is going to be a very manual process of taking customer feedback on those initial on that initial product. And you're not rolling that out to a larger audience until you've made sure that you have those kinks worked out.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then figuring out a repository for this sort of information, even if it's just a spreadsheet or a Google Docs folder or something, because in another episode, we're going to be talking about building your team.
Yep.
And so as you're starting to bring people on, having this stuff somewhat organized, your early cases, because what will happen is you have people show up and be like, well, have you thought about this? And you'll be like, actually, here's like 60 pages of documentation of people telling me that we should do that. And that's kind of what I was planning. So it can really help you build alignment, building that documentation repository on that user feedback for as your company grows and having that as kind of a foundation.
Yeah, there's been a lot of consistencies putting this video series together that I didn't honestly even really think about until we made this video series, right? I mean, we've talked about talking to your customers. We've talked about documenting everything. There's a lot of pieces along the way that we are repeating. We're just repeating them in different ways. And so, the documentation is going to be critically important. And so your development team is already used to documentation at this point, right? They already started doing that, hopefully, as we discussed earlier. Now we need to start taking those customer feedbacks, documenting those properly, aligning those with what our feature roadmap is, rollout, right? And building a business case around each one of them, right? And so just like you do in the very early phase when you're talking to potential users of your product, when you just have an idea and maybe a clickable prototype, you are still going to be looking at things in a very similar light now, this stage in the game, really building a business case around everything that you want to roll out. Just because one person says, I want to have this automatically call this thing when this thing happens. Doesn't mean you spend 3 months in development doing that, right? But if you have 60 of your customers ask for that in the first month rollout,
right,
that's something that maybe we should escalate, bring up farther, right?
Well, and that's why you want to make sure you're segmenting that journey, because once you get to the point where you've built your product and you're launching it, you need to have some sort of agenda with that feedback, because otherwise you're going to open it up to all sorts of different things. You'll have people questioning the business model from the get-go, and it's like, no, that what I'm trying to do is improve the experience with this. So going in and just asking people, like, do you like it or not, or would you use this, is not robust enough. You've got to have specifics around. And again, here's the other thing I'll be careful with, is that one thing I commonly see people make the mistake is they lead the witness. They lead them by saying, wouldn't you like to use this every day or something, right? Like, or
it's the infomercial route.
Yeah, basically, right? Where the questions are not sanitized enough to make sure it's a very open question, because it can be, and I've seen this happen over and over again in research in testing, is where you might have somebody who's kind of leading the question a little bit more by saying something like, well, don't you hate using that other product?
Right.
And isn't this product much better, or something like that? And I get it. Like, you want to get positive feedback no matter what, because it feels like if I'm not getting positive feedback, I don't have forward momentum.
Right.
But the thing is that even the not positive feedback is forward momentum. It still is, because you're knowing more and more where not to touch. Then more importantly, right? The where you think it's important is what to touch, right?
It's very much as valuable to have the negative as the positive. And then I would just also say that in a previous video, we talked about doing one thing well. Keep that idea moving forward every time you roll something out additional. Make sure now you're doing the second thing well and the third thing well. Don't do that one thing well and then decide, well, now I'm going to add 7 features. Because I already blew it out of the water with that first one, and I have 15,000 users already. When you're adding them, add them intentionally, do them well, make sure that it has a business case around it, make sure that your users are asking for it, roll those pieces out slowly. You'll see this in other successful organizations, and then you'll be fine.
One last thing that I want to convey to the founders that are listening here is the importance of don't trust success. And what I mean by that is you think of the Ubers and the Airbnbs in the world. Taxis were doing just fine, and hotels were doing just fine. And they were very successful in what they were doing. And so, people looked at that and said, well, why go after those industries in those areas? They've got it covered.
Right.
And when, as a founder, at some point, you're going to be bringing your product or service to an organization or individual that maybe has a lot of history and success in that industry. Their feedback is important, but don't just trust that since they've been successful, they understand and know exactly what your vision is, or can understand it. So my advice is just be measured when you take this into the industry that you're planning on, hopefully making a big splash in, right? And just realize that sometimes those things might fight against you a little bit, but don't let that discourage you. And that's what I mean by don't trust success. So
that's great, Kurt. I have nothing to add to that.